My beloved child, wait, because the moment the psychic looked across the room at your soulmate, her expression suddenly changed. She had been calm only seconds earlier, speaking as though this would be an ordinary reading, but then she became completely still and said something your soulmate was never prepared to hear: you don't know who they really are. Your soulmate immediately thought she meant there was some hidden secret about you, but the psychic shook her head. No. You're misunderstanding me. The person you think you know has been showing you only the smallest part of who they are capable of becoming. And that sentence changed the entire atmosphere. Don't skip, because what she revealed next wasn't about some ordinary detail from your past. She spoke about the strength you developed when nobody was watching, the quiet decisions that changed your direction, and the version of you that has been forming beneath the surface. Your soulmate had noticed something different about you lately, but they couldn't explain it. They had seen the way you became quieter about your plans. They noticed you stopped trying to prove yourself. They noticed that things which once distracted you no longer seemed powerful enough to control your attention. But they assumed you were simply changing. The psychic leaned forward and said, "They aren't simply changing. They're preparing." Preparing for what? That was exactly what your soulmate wanted to know. Yet instead of answering immediately, she asked one question: have you ever wondered why this person entered your life at the exact moment they did? Your soulmate went silent. Stay till the end, because this is where the reading moved in a direction nobody expected. The psychic explained that some people arrive in our lives when we are ready to recognize something about ourselves that we could not see before. She said your presence had already caused your soulmate to question old assumptions, rethink certain choices, and imagine possibilities they once considered impossible. But then came the first major revelation. She said, "You believe you've already seen their strongest side. You haven't." And your soulmate froze, because deep inside, they already knew those words carried meaning. Then the psychic said something even more surprising. The person you're thinking about has survived chapters you know almost nothing about, not because they were hiding themselves, but because they learned that not everyone deserves access to every part of their story. Suddenly, your soulmate began remembering tiny moments that had seemed meaningless before. The times you stayed composed when others expected you to react. The moments you walked away instead of proving a point. The strange confidence behind your silence. The way you sometimes seemed to know exactly when something was no longer meant for you. Your soulmate had interpreted those moments as distance, but the psychic offered another possibility: maturity. This person has learned how to protect their energy without closing their heart, she said. And then she added, that is why you don't know who they really are yet. Something huge is waiting for you, because the psychic wasn't finished. She described a future version of you that even your soulmate struggled to imagine, a version who finally stops questioning whether they are ready and begins moving as though their purpose matters. She said your biggest transformation would not arrive with noise or attention. It would happen quietly, through decisions nobody applauded, through patience nobody noticed, and through opportunities that initially looked too small to matter. Then she looked directly at your soulmate and asked, what happens when someone you thought you understood suddenly becomes everything they were always capable of becoming? Your soulmate had no answer. How could they? They had been looking at you through memories while you were already becoming someone new. Don't skip now, because this was when the psychic revealed the detail that changed your soulmate's entire understanding of you. She said there was one quality inside you that people repeatedly underestimated, and soon, that same quality could become the reason your entire path looks different. Your soulmate immediately asked what it was. The psychic smiled slightly, but instead of answering, she said, "Think carefully. What is the one thing about them that never completely disappeared, even during their hardest seasons?" Your soulmate searched through every memory until suddenly they understood. Your ability to begin again. But there was still one final layer your soulmate hadn't seen coming. The psychic explained that beginning again wasn't your greatest strength, it was evidence of something deeper. You had developed the ability to become wiser without becoming colder, more selective without becoming closed, and more ambitious without forgetting what truly mattered to you. That was the person your soulmate didn't fully know yet. Not some mysterious stranger hiding behind your face, but a future version of you being built through every choice you are making right now. Stay till the end, because the psychic then gave your soulmate a sentence they couldn't stop thinking about. One day, everyone who underestimated this person will wonder when everything changed. But you have the rare opportunity to recognize the change while it is happening. Your soulmate felt those words differently because suddenly your silence made sense. Your patience made sense. Even the moments when you stepped away from situations that no longer matched your direction began to look completely different. And just when your soulmate thought the reading was finished, the psychic looked down, paused, and whispered, "There's something else." Your soulmate leaned closer. The psychic continued, "There is one decision this person is approaching. They may not even realize how important it will become, but once they make it, their path will split into a completely different direction." That was when your soulmate's curiosity became impossible to ignore. What decision? When would it happen? And most importantly, would your soulmate still have a place beside you after everything changed? The psychic didn't answer immediately. She simply looked at them and said, "Before I tell you that, you need to understand why this person was never ordinary in your story." And what she was about to reveal next would force your soulmate to reconsider everything they thought they knew about you. Something shifted the moment the psychic said those words, because your soulmate suddenly realized this reading was no longer about discovering a secret, it was about understanding why you had affected their life so deeply. The psychic leaned closer and said, "You keep asking who this person really is, but you should be asking why you can't forget the way they made you see yourself differently." Your soulmate became silent. Don't skip, because this was the first clue. She explained that your greatest influence was never something obvious. You didn't need to demand attention. Somehow, your presence made people examine their own choices. Your soulmate remembered conversations with you that stayed in their mind long after they ended. They remembered small things you said casually that suddenly made sense weeks later. And then the psychic revealed something unexpected. This person has no idea how powerful their quiet influence can become. Your soulmate looked confused, but she continued. They believe their biggest chapter is somewhere far ahead. They don't realize they've already entered the beginning of it. Stay till the end, because she then described something your soulmate had noticed but never understood. You had recently begun releasing things that once seemed important. Old expectations. Old patterns. The need to explain every decision. It wasn't because you had stopped caring. It was because somewhere inside you, a clearer direction was beginning to form. Then came the revelation your soulmate wasn't expecting. The psychic said, there will be a moment when this person receives an opportunity that initially appears ordinary. If they recognize what it really represents, everything afterward could look different. Your soulmate immediately asked whether this opportunity involved them. The psychic paused. Partly, she replied, but the bigger question is whether you are prepared to meet the person they are becoming instead of expecting them to remain the person you remember. Something huge is waiting for you, because those words struck your soulmate harder than anything else. They suddenly understood that caring about someone does not mean freezing them inside an old version of themselves. You were growing. Your priorities were becoming clearer. Your standards were changing. And your soulmate faced a choice of their own: grow beside you or keep searching for the version of you that no longer existed. The psychic then said, you're worried their transformation will take them away from you. But what if it is actually revealing whether your connection can become stronger? Your soulmate had never considered that. They had interpreted change as uncertainty when perhaps it was an invitation to understand you more deeply. Don't skip now, because the psychic suddenly mentioned one specific thing: a conversation. Not some dramatic confrontation, but an honest conversation that had been delayed for too long. And according to her, that conversation could completely change what your soulmate believed about your connection. But before your soulmate could ask when this conversation would happen, the psychic raised her hand and said, there is something you still haven't understood about them. The room became quiet again. They are no longer waiting for someone else to tell them who they should become. That sentence stayed with your soulmate. You had spent enough time questioning yourself, adjusting yourself, wondering whether your dreams were too ambitious or your expectations too high. Now something was different. You were beginning to trust your own direction. Stay till the end, because this is exactly why the psychic's original words mattered so much: you don't know who they really are. She wasn't saying your soulmate knew nothing about you. She was saying they had only met the earlier chapters. The person emerging now had stronger boundaries, clearer vision, deeper patience, and a willingness to walk toward opportunities that once seemed unreachable. Then the psychic looked directly at your soulmate and delivered one final surprise: the decision I mentioned earlier is closer than you think. And when it arrives, this person will discover something about themselves that even they didn't know. Your soulmate immediately leaned forward. What will they discover? The psychic remained silent for several seconds before answering, that they were ready long before they believed they were. And then she added one more sentence that changed everything: but there is someone connected to that decision, and you already know this person. Your soulmate's expression changed instantly, because one name had just entered their mind. Now the psychic's voice became quieter, and somehow that made every word feel more important. She looked at your soulmate and said, the name that just entered your mind is not random, but don't rush to conclusions, because the truth is different from what you're imagining. Your soulmate stared at her, waiting. Don't skip, because this was where the entire reading turned in an unexpected direction. The psychic explained that this person was not arriving to replace anyone or take anything away. Instead, they were connected to an opportunity, an introduction, or a piece of information that could help you see a path you had overlooked. Your soulmate immediately began replaying recent events, trying to identify the person. But the psychic stopped them. "You're concentrating on who it is," she said. "You should be concentrating on what they will reveal." That sentence changed everything. According to her, you had been closer to a breakthrough than you realized, but because progress had been happening quietly, even you might have mistaken preparation for delay. "Stay till the end," because she then said something your soulmate could not forget. "When this door appears, they may hesitate, not because they are incapable, but because the opportunity will ask them to see themselves differently." Your soulmate suddenly understood the real mystery. The secret wasn't that you had another identity. The secret was that your potential had grown beyond the version of you everyone had become comfortable expecting. And then the psychic asked your soulmate one powerful question: if they finally become confident enough to choose the life they truly want, will you recognize them, or will you ask them to become smaller so everything feels familiar again? Silence filled the room. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate realized this reading was testing their perspective as much as it was revealing yours. They remembered moments when you had spoken about bigger possibilities, new beginnings, and things you wanted to accomplish. Perhaps they had listened without understanding how seriously those dreams lived inside you. Perhaps they assumed there would always be more time. But now the psychic was telling them that your waiting season was beginning to change. "They are approaching a point where intention becomes action," she said. "And once that happens, people around them will notice the difference." Your soulmate asked, "Will they change completely?" The psychic smiled. "No. That is the surprising part. They will become more themselves. Don't skip now." Those words mattered. Your kindness didn't have to disappear for your confidence to grow. Your heart didn't have to become distant for your boundaries to become stronger. Your dreams didn't require you to abandon who you were. You were simply learning to stop apologizing for becoming more intentional about your future. And suddenly your soulmate understood why they had felt something changing around you even before this reading began. Then the psychic turned toward the window as though arranging the final pieces of a puzzle. "There is another reason I told you that you don't know who they really are," she said. "You have been judging their story by what has already happened. But their most important qualities may only become visible when the next chapter asks more from them." Your soulmate listened carefully. "Stay till the end, because what came next was the strongest revelation yet." The psychic said there would soon be a moment when you would have two directions in front of you. One familiar and comfortable, the other unfamiliar but filled with possibility. Nobody could make that decision for you. Not your soulmate. Not your past. Not anyone watching from the outside. It would belong entirely to you. And your soulmate suddenly realized something extraordinary: they weren't supposed to control your next chapter. They were supposed to decide whether they could respect the person choosing it. The psychic looked at them one final time and said, "If you truly want to understand who they are, watch what they choose when nobody is telling them what to choose." Your soulmate felt those words settle deeply. But then, just when everything seemed clear, the psychic's expression changed again. "Wait," she whispered. "There's one detail I almost missed." Your soulmate leaned closer. The psychic looked directly into their eyes and said, "That future decision is connected to something they once walked away from." And suddenly, the mystery became even bigger, because whatever was returning to your path might not be returning in the same form, but the psychic suddenly stopped, as if one final piece had changed everything she thought she understood. She looked directly at your soulmate and said, "What they once walked away from is coming back differently. And this time, they will be different too." Your soulmate immediately wanted to know what she meant. Was it an old dream? An unfinished opportunity? A path you once believed wasn't meant for you? The psychic refused to name it immediately. "That isn't the important part," she said. "The important part is that they once believed walking away meant they had failed. Soon they may understand it was preparation. Don't skip, because your soulmate suddenly remembered something about you. Whenever life redirected you, you eventually found a way to turn disappointment into wisdom. You learned. You adjusted. You became more careful about where your attention belonged. And without realizing it, you were preparing yourself for a second chance that would require a stronger version of you." The psychic leaned forward. "When it returns, it won't look exactly as it did before. That is how they could almost miss it. Stay till the end, because the smallest detail could become the biggest turning point." Your soulmate asked the question they had been holding back: "Where do I fit into all of this?" The psychic became completely serious. "That depends on whether you understand what loving someone's potential really means. You cannot ask them to grow and then become uncomfortable when they actually do." Those words stayed in the room. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate finally understood that the mystery surrounding you wasn't about hidden secrets, it was about hidden capacity. They had known your personality, your habits, your laughter, your quiet moments, but they had not yet witnessed what happens when your confidence finally catches up with your ability. The psychic said, "There will come a moment when they stop asking, 'What if I'm not ready?' and start asking, 'What if I've been ready for longer than I realized?' That single shift could change everything. The opportunity returning to you would require courage, clarity, and a decision made without seeking approval from everyone around you." And strangely, your soulmate felt excited rather than worried. Maybe your growth wasn't something to fear. Maybe witnessing you become more fully yourself could be one of the most meaningful parts of knowing you. Then the psychic revealed the detail she had almost missed. The returning opportunity is only the beginning. There is another choice behind it. Your soulmate's eyes widened. "Another choice?" She nodded. "The first door shows them what is possible. The second reveals what they truly want. Don't skip now, because this is where everything connects back to those first mysterious words: you don't know who they really are." Your soulmate thought the psychic was about to expose something from your past. Instead, she was revealing something about your future. You were approaching a chapter where even you could surprise yourself. Not through magic, not through promises, but through choices, clear, brave, deliberate choices. The psychic finally looked at your soulmate and said, "When that second door appears, they will have to choose between what looks impressive and what actually feels meaningful." Your soulmate asked which one you would choose. The psychic smiled. "That is exactly when you will discover who they really are." And then she added one final line, but when that moment arrives, something your soulmate has never told you may finally be revealed too.